As NBA fans, we always love criticizing players. We love criticizing their weaknesses and aspects of their game that they need to work on. We love criticizing players who are paid way too much compared to their level of production. But today, let's take a look at the opposite end of the spectrum. Which players of the last decade since 2010 have greatly outperformed their contract? Which players have far exceeded their expected values? And by the way, I will not be considering rookie contracts in this video, since they're all bound to a certain scale, and if I did put them in, they'd fill up the entire list. I'll only talk about regular contracts, the ones that players sign after their rookie deals are over, like extensions or free agent contracts, things like that. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and let's get started. But before we start, I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsor, Swagbucks. It's a great way to make some extra cash and gift cards. In order to do so, you just gotta watch some videos, play some short games, and take surveys to earn rewards, all from the comfort of your own home. You can get gift cards and discounts for Amazon, Walmart, Starbucks, Best Buy. Those are the ones I prefer when I cash out. The sign-up process is very simple and the whole website is easy to navigate. If you sign up, make sure to click my link in the description below to get an extra $5 bonus when you take your first survey. Thank you to Swagbucks for sponsoring this video, and without further ado, let's get started. Number 8, Lou Williams, 3 years, $24 million, signed in 2018. This is one of the more recent contract signings on this list, and when it happened, I was very surprised. Lou Will was absolutely balling out in the 2017-18 campaign. At that time, the Clippers recently traded away Blake Griffin, and it looked like they were in the beginning stages of a rebuild. However, Lou Will was carrying the team all year, leading the Clips with 22.6 points per game. It looked like he was gonna be in for a huge payday, but instead, in February of 2018, he opted to sign a modest 3-year, $24 million contract extension. And now, a few years later, he's been way overplaying his contract value, as he continues to put up around 20 points per game on decent efficiency. These are starting caliber numbers despite being the 6th man. When asked about why he accepted a seemingly lowball offer, Lou stated, "It's a great organization with a positive culture and I like where we are headed as a basketball team. We have a great group of guys here. I have been on a lot of teams and a lot of times these situations don't always go my way. This one did and I am thankful for that. Looks like he's just relieved and thankful to be part of a team that wants him." Number 7, Mike Conley, 5 years, $45 million, signed in 2010. Now, the interesting thing about this contract is that making $9 million per year was a pretty significant amount back in 2010. The salary cap in the 2010-11 season was only at $58 million, so $9 million a year, that's like 16% of the cap, I believe. What's even more interesting is that most people, even Grizzlies fans, believe that this was an overpay for Conley. That's because in his first couple years, he wasn't that good. It was common to see him have issues dribbling the ball or making errant passes and not finishing well. I mean, he barely made over half his shots at the rim. 54% is pretty pitiful, even for a point guard. However, after signing the deal, he made tremendous strides. His reputation did a 180. Before he signed the deal, he was seen as overrated and overpaid. But then, by around 2013-14, he was now seen as underrated and underpaid. That season, he averaged 17 and 6 and had many great playoff performances. In a hyper-competitive Western Conference, he showed that he belonged, and he could compete with the premier point guards of that era. For just $9 million per year, Conley certainly outperformed his expectations. Fortunately, he got rewarded for his efforts too. In the summer of 2016, the Grizzlies signed him to a colossal $153 million deal. At the time he signed this, it was the largest contract in NBA history, although it's been eclipsed by other players now. Number 6, Kyle Lowry. 4 years, $23 million, signed in 2010. Speaking of underrated point guards outperforming their contracts, Kyle Lowry is another great example. Early on in his career, it took him a while to get things going. He bounced around a few teams, and despite showing promise, he didn't get much of a chance. Even when the Rockets matched this offer to retain him, his starting point guard spot was very shaky, as him and Goran Dragic both fought for it. Eventually, the Rockets decided to keep Dragic and trade away Lowry to the Raptors. But during these 4 years, Lowry put up respectable numbers, nearly 15 points and 7 assists per game, and blossomed into a serious three-point threat. The main difference between his contract and Conley's contract was that Lowry never had a consistent role on any of his teams. Before signing it, nobody knew how good he was due to his coaches not really giving him the opportunity. His talents were just completely unknown back in 2010. Number 5, Montrezl Harrell. 2 years, $12 million, signed in 2018. Fast forward to 2018, and here we have another amazing steal by the Clippers. In fact, this was straight up robbery. In 2017, Harrell played well, not great, but not bad. He became known for his energy and hustle, despite being an undersized big man. Partly why he didn't get paid that much, because he couldn't really do much outside of his energy and hustle. But after signing that 2-year contract, his numbers skyrocketed. In the 2019-20 season, he averaged nearly 19 points per game on great efficiency. A huge reason why the Clippers are as good as they are, even when Kawhi and Paul George are sitting out. Harrell feasts in transition and in pick and rolls, complementing Lou Williams quite nicely. In fact, if it wasn't for these two signing modest contracts, the Clippers would not have the funds to sign Kawhi or PG. Number 4, Dirk Nowitzki. 2 years, $16 million, signed in 2014. In 2014, Dirk was 36 years old, but he was still balling. He just came off an incredible bounce-back year, previously averaging nearly 22 points a game on 50-40-90 splits, and the Mavs pushed the eventual champion Spurs to 7 games. Dirk played very well, and of course, he deserved a hefty contract after that fantastic season. However, instead, the Mavs asked Dirk to take a pay cut so they could sign Chandler Parsons. Dirk, being the nice guy he's always been, was completely fine with that. Unfortunately, Parsons suffered a series of injuries when he came to Dallas and never lived up to his expectations. Basically, Dirk took a huge pay cut for no reason. If we look at these 2 years, he was averaging about 18 points per game. While his shooting and especially his defense were not the same as before, he was still a very deadly offensive threat and provided much more value than what he was getting paid at just $8 million per year. Since most of his money went to Parsons, Dirk jokingly stated, "I told him every dinner on the road this year is on him, because it's my money anyway." After this 2-year deal was up, Mark Cuban basically paid him back, signing him to a 1-year, $25 million deal. Number 3, Isaiah Thomas, 4 years, $27 million, signed in 2014. In the 2014 offseason, the Kings and Suns agreed to do a sign-and-trade for Isaiah Thomas. The Suns received him and signed him for 4 years, $27 million. When it happened, it was already deemed as an underpay, considering that Thomas showed signs of star potential back in Sacramento. The issue was his height. Just like for every guy on Tinder, height was a huge factor. It was a point of hesitation among teams. They weren't sure how they'd work out in the long run if he was only 5'9". Anyway, the Suns' 3-point guard rotation was not working out too well. So at the deadline, Isaiah got traded to the Boston Celtics. It was in Boston where he catapulted himself into superstardom, making 2 All-Star teams. In the 2016-17 season, he had one of the greatest offensive seasons of all time, putting up 29 points per game on elite efficiency, over 62% true shooting percentage. For a guy making just $7 million a year, that's probably the best season in recent history, in terms of contract value and production. He had arguably the best numbers out of any other point guard that year. The bad news is, his contract didn't expire until 2018, and by then, he suffered a lingering hip injury that stunted his play. While Isaiah expected to get offers upwards of $100 million, that injury came at an extremely bad time, and up until today, he still hasn't gotten any other major contracts. Number 2, Kemba Walker, 4 years, $48 million. Signed in 2014. Kemba signed this extension in late 2014. At first, it was seen as a solid deal. Kemba was putting up decent numbers on a losing team, but he was young and the sky's the limit. Charlotte was banking on him to improve, and that's what happened, earning multiple All-Star selections and greatly improving his jump shot. Kemba was pretty bad at shooting, but after he signed the deal, he worked relentlessly to live up to it. In the 4 years of that deal, he averaged 23 points a game and became a legit All-Star. For $12 million a year, he became everything the Hornets wanted. Well, except the whole winning part. It's not his fault, but the rest of his teammates were mediocre at best. Despite his fantastic individual play, the organization failed him. And that's why he eventually left for Boston. And finally, at number 1, you already know, Steph Curry. 4 years, $44 million, signed in 2012. The thing with this contract was that it made sense at the time. In fact, many fans thought the Warriors were overpaying for Steph. He recently came off a season where he played only 26 games, and it looked like his ankle problems were not going away, to the point where perhaps those issues were chronic. However, immediately after he signed that deal, he exploded onto the scene and started his journey to becoming the Steph that captivated the entire world. From 2012 until 2016, he kept improving, at his peak leading the league in scoring with over 30 points per game on astronomical shooting splits. He became a top 3 player in the league, all while just making $11 million per year. This Curry contract was critical in building the Warriors into a championship contender, because it allowed the team to retain their other stars much easier by not going too far into the luxury tax. All around, it was the perfect situation for the franchise to rise, and it couldn't have happened without this contract. Anyway, that's all, folks. Those were 8 NBA players with the biggest contract bargains of the last decade. Let me know your thoughts if you can think of any other players who deserve to be on this list. Which other players have been massive contract steals for their respective team? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.